Just a quick film review for you here. I've just gotten back from seeing Gran Turismo with my wife, not to be confused with Gran Torino, the modern classic Clint Eastwood film from about a decade ago or more at this point. Gran Turismo is a film that you would be forgiven for thinking is a video game movie. It is not a video game movie, though it is sort of a video game movie at the same time. It tells the true story of a young man who was practically obsessed with playing the game, the driving simulator, the racing simulator, Gran Turismo. My own experience with that game was limited. I never cared personally for driving video games and racing games in particular, but I had a friend of mine many years ago who absolutely loved those games. And that friend of mine did not have the setup this kid did in this film. Again, it's a true story. He practically had a simulator set up in his bedroom, and he was one of the best players of the game in the world. And in fact, it was that fact that he was one of the best game players of the game in the world that allowed him to get invited for a real chance to become a real racer, as sponsored by Nissan. It's a true story. We'll put an asterisk next to that. And because it's a true story, I will warn you here, as I do with every review I do for this channel, since this audience is heavily Catholic, and those who aren't Catholic are either Christian or Christian-leaning, here is the warnings. I counted 5 instances of the Lord's name in vain, and similar kinds of blasphemy, total. I missed it, but my wife pointed out to me later there was also an F-bomb in the movie. The F-bomb was contextually could be forgiven the person who used it in the context of what was going on, though again, I'm of the mind that kind of language isn't usually, it's rare that that kind of language is completely appropriate and completely understandable for what it's used for. But in this case, I think it is almost, I won't say appropriate, but understandable. So with those caveats out, because no one else on YouTube will give you those warnings about what is in a film, there is no what we'll call real adult situations. There's a scene where the main character and his almost Adrian-type character, girlfriend, to bring Rocky, the best of all sports movies, I think, into this, close to an adult situation because they're dancing and they kiss. That's about as adult situation as these things get. So my thought on this film is this: it's a sports film, and sports films all hit the same kind of beats. There's always this older mentor kind of character who takes the young person who wants their shot, and the world is not willing to give them their shot until weird circumstances happen where they have the opportunity to have their shot. And the older mentor type takes them under their wing, oftentimes not willingly, as is the case in this film, and pretty much as is in the case of Rocky. This movie very much plays like Rocky in a lot of ways. And then you have, the sort of the training montage that happens, and then they have to prove that they're really worth what they're doing, and then they have their final fight, as in Rocky, or the big races that they have to do in this one. And there's usually some sort of tragedy that happens in it. Those are generally the kind of beats you see in these kind of things. Great examples of the older mentor character. I can't remember the name of the character or the actor. He's from Stranger Things. If you saw Violent Night, he played Santa Claus in that movie. But he plays the older mentor character, the Mickey kind of character Mick character from Rocky, or the Doc Hudson from Cars. Okay, that's the kind of character he plays. And then there's the character who could be the Adrian type, the girlfriend. She is unfortunately so misused in this movie. That's one critique I've seen others who've seen this say, and it's absolutely the case here, is she had the opportunity to be an Adrian, and they didn't use her that way. And you might be thinking, well, you said it's based on a true story, so why should they rewrite it? Because they took a lot of liberties. For instance, that older coach mentor character doesn't exist in the real life story. He's likely an amalgamation of several characters, but he does not actually exist in real life, whereas the main character does. Some of the events, they take a lot of liberties with him. There's an accident. That's not a spoiler, because in the trailer you see the main character recuperating from his accident on a couch. That happened several years after the events of this movie, but they made it look like it happened like right after he was, got the opportunity to race. And there's a few other things that they took some liberties with. I've never seen, though, a based on true events film that didn't take liberties. You saw it in the Johnny Cash movie. You saw it in Bohemian Rhapsody about Queen and Freddie Mercury. You saw liberties. You see these liberties taken in every based on real events story. In fact, you saw it in Sound of Freedom too, right? In fact, the media is loving to harp on that film for the liberties that were taken, even though there's a fundamental difference, as we said in our first live stream, between films that are based on true events and, of course, a documentary. And this film was not a documentary. But as sports movies go, it's good. If you can handle all the warnings I gave you about it, then this is a movie you may find interesting. If you like sports movies, I do. I think sports movies work because as long as you hit those same beats and you choose the right story to tell in a sports movie, it works every time because it is the classic hero's journey. It's just usually often a non-violent sort of environment, or even if there's violence, it's still controlled violence. Although in this movie, the accident that results with you seeing him on, bruised and on a couch recuperating is pretty bad. And it really did happen. So, but it's the hero's journey in a realistic sort of way that we often see. I mean, how many times if you're a sports fan, every few years in whatever sport you like, there's always this underdog story that comes out, whether it's a team who shouldn't really have a shot at, say, the NBA Finals, or that rookie who came from humble beginnings and somehow, it's like he's a rookie, but he's like 25 and walked onto the field or managed to try out and get on the team and play pro. Those kind of stories. They're very human stories. And that's why the classic by the numbers sports movie works. And this sports movie is no different. Does it have elements of a video game in it? Absolutely. There are times where you see him playing the video game. You see him like looking at and analyzing the racetrack in a split second in his head while he's racing in terms of the game. You see at times, like there's one unnecessary video game reference in the film where they show the car fly apart. Not like in a crash, but like all the parts come off so you can see the different parts of the vehicle. That was unnecessary. That was kind of gratuitous. But otherwise, the video game aspects were used really well. And that's really high marks from me because I don't like video game movies. I haven't seen one that I really liked. Now, granted, I have not seen Super Mario Brothers and I have not seen the Sonic movies. I should take care of the Sonic movies once. I hear they're actually pretty good. The only other thing that I would say is, again, because I haven't seen the Sonic movies, let me know in the comments if I, one, should see the Sonic films. But two, the very beginning of the movie has a thing that reminded me of how Marvel movies and DC movies start, where you know how a Marvel movie has that sort of the Marvel role and it shows like the comic book characters, and the DC films have their own version of that. This had that too, except it was, PlayStation films. And they had like all these different PlayStation characters. Did Mario Brothers have that? Let me know in the comments, because I didn't see that film. I will fix that probably when it hits streaming, unless it's already hit streaming, but I don't think it has yet. But let me know in the comments, did you see Gran Turismo? Did you have any interest in seeing Gran Turismo? And if you had interest after this review, do you want to see it? Even if you didn't want to see it beforehand, did I change your mind? Let me know in the comments what you thought, and if this is something you would want to see, because, it is nice to see one thing, that a relatively original film coming out at this time of year. Hollywood can occasionally put out an original film. It's pretty nice. So let me know what you thought about this in the comments, please, and hit that like and subscribe button. It does help. Anyway, thanks for your time. I'm Anthony Stein.